Yo, hey guys, welcome back to another video. And I got something a little bit different today. Now, this is gonna be I'm gonna be talking about like what fucks over Cleave the most in this current day and age. And there is a lot. So people are saying, this is not just my opinion by the way, this is like pretty much the general consensus that Cleave is like in its shittest spot ever. Just because every unit that comes out is some sort of like direct counter to Cleave. Like just now we had Abyssal Ufine, which is one of the best anti-cleave units in the game. And then before that we had ML Landy, right? We had Moonbunny's buff, we had ML Ken's buff, we had Infinite Horizon Acades coming out. Last year we had Karina, Zio, Savior Auden. Like all these units that have been releasing recently have all just been extremely strong. So that's why it's really hard to get away with a successful Cleave draft, especially with no anchors. I feel like to succeed in Cleave now, you definitely need an anchor. It's just impossible to do it without. But yeah, this is what I came up with. This is just, of course, this is just my opinion, and this list can change depending on what type of Cleave you do. But I've played with, I think, almost every single Cleave now at this point. And I think this list is a good general sum up of what fucks up the most amount of Cleave by themselves. So I'll just talk about it briefly, each unit on this list. And I'll just talk about how they counter Cleave, how to play against them, whether they're worth pre-banning, just for the top row I guess, but yeah. Let's start with the top. I guess the top row are all pretty much pre-bans. Like, you can pre-ban any one of these 6, and like, that's what most cleavers will do. I think 99% of cleavers are gonna pre-ban 2 of the 6 units you see on that top row. Bellion, Abyssal Ufine, ML Landy, Savior Auden, Zio, and Karina. So, let's talk about Bellion. Why is Bellion extremely broken versus Cleave? Because no souls. There are so many Cleave styles that rely on souls. Think of stuff like Ran Cleave, think of stuff Zio Cleave, all these that need to ignore ER or that need to soul burn their moves like a Politis or something, they all get shut down by Bellion. And the only way to cleave against Bellion teams is if your cleave relies on some sort of no soul, like Flitty, C, Pavel, Sid type of cleave, but that type of cleave has their own counters as well. So that's why Bellion, if you're relying on some sort of soul cleave, she needs to be pre-banned. Otherwise, this unit will be a forced post-ban for you every single game, which leads to other units countering you, right? So Bellion is one of my pre-bans because I rely on soul cleaving, and she's also a counter-attacker with Elbrus. So not only does she shut down souls, if she counters twice, your team just explodes. And playing with that level of RNG is like playing with like ML Landy level of RNG, except it's even worse because Bellion AoE counterattacks, while ML Landy has only a 40% chance to AoE counterattack. So, Bellion is one of the best anti-cleave units in the game, probably tied with number 1. Now I'm gonna talk about, this is in no particular order by the way, I just put them in there based on like who I saw on the list. Now number 2 is gonna be Abyssal Ufine. Now the reason why Abyssal Ufine, you're gonna see a trend on what's good versus cleave. If they rely on some sort of counterattack mechanic, while also having something else on top. So in this case for Abyssal Ufine, she cuts CR manipulation as well by 30%. And she also has Holy Sack, so she doesn't care if she dies. If she's at max fighting spirit, or if she counterattacks twice, you just lose. So, the 30% CR cut is, or not 30%, it's 50%, right? 50% at max S2. The half CR gain is broken. If you pair Ufine and Politis together, the other team cannot CR push at all. Which means all of their bridges are useless. Which means any sort of CR push is useless. She's also a counterattacker like I mentioned, and those counterattackers, or those counterattacks can land attack down, which can completely screw up your cleave if they have a mitigator on the team. The only really viable way to deal with Knuckle is running Briar Witch, Savior Auden, and Knuckle. Those 3 units can kind of deal with Yuffie. Knuckle because she shuts down her counterattacks, Bryceria because she stops her revive, and Savior Auden, she can just dodge and then give invincibility and one tap Yuffie back. You'll see in my match history, I guess we can even like go to my match history here. Let me switch my windows. Let's do this. Oh, I decayed. Oops. I guess I'll make a video on it later. Let's see, like, I think this match. This match has Abyssal Yuffie, right? So I picked 2 counters to this Abyssal Yuffie. But it didn't matter because she counterattacked, and then my team just exploded. So not only do you have to get lucky versus her, but these 2 picks that I'm forced to do versus Abyssal Yuffie loses to some of these other picks. Let's see, that one had one. Nope. And you'll see a lot of my matches, they all have like 2 or 3 of these anti-cleave units, right? That one doesn't have it either. Not that one either. Nope. This one as well. Remember, this time they paired with Politis, so I had 0 CR push, and it was rough. But yeah, she's just extremely obnoxious to deal with, especially if she's first picked. Oh my god, you need to pick Savior Auden versus her as an anchor. I feel like that's the most reliable way to deal with Abyssal Yuffie. Now we're gonna talk about, in my opinion, I think the best anti-cleave unit in the game, ML Landy. You guys should already know what ML Landy does at this point. She gives anti-crit to everyone. She has innate anti-crit on her kit. She can run Elbrus. She does a shit ton of damage. She heals. It's just so much. So what ML Landy does to your draft is it forces you to pick anti-counterattack units. So stuff like Astromancer, stuff like Knuckle, right? Those stuff lose to Savior Auden. Not only that, you need to pick a stripping unit, so something like Ran, right? Because you need to strip away that anti-crit, which by that same logic, you're risking a counterattack if you're not drafting Knuckle or Astromancer. So you need to pair those 2 together. But Ran and Astromancer lose to so many things in the game, it's ridiculous. They lose to Celine, they lose to Elena, they lose to AOL, they lose to Savior Auden, they lose to like Violet, they lose to so many things. T-Seren, there's a lot that it loses to. Politis as well, right? Edward Elric, Designer Lilibet, like all those units I just named, they can all deal with Ran Astromancer. So she warps your draft by baiting you to pick those units just to get countered again later in the draft. And by that point, since cleave drafts are so linear, you can't really do much about it. Because you need to pick 2 openers and 2 bridges, right? That are also DPS. And then the last pick is most likely like a flex pick, but they can always ban that or something. So yeah. ML Landy is, in my opinion, the best anti-cleave. Now we're gonna go on to Savior Auden. So Savior Auden, by herself, she has tons of counters, right? You have stuff like Zahak, LPK, Bryceria, Knuckle S2ing. There's a decent amount of counters to her in a cleave draft. Eligos as well. But the issue is when Savior Auden is paired with other stuff in the game. When Savior Auden is paired with stuff like, especially Karina. When you see Savior Auden and Karina picked together, yes, you can blow up the Aiden, but that will just proc Karina and then you just lose on the spot. If you pick stuff like Zahak and Bryceria to deal with Savior Auden, those stuff loses to stuff like Zio, right? That loses to stuff like Abyssal Yuffie, ML Landy, Sage Ball, right? Tons of stuff. So The issue is not Saber Auden by herself. It's when she's paired with other units that makes her so annoying to deal with. As well as the fact that she pushes up CR and she can counterattack and one-tap your team if she's on MLDB on Destruction set is absolutely insane. In my opinion, I think she's the third best anti-cleave unit behind Bellion and ML Landy. But I think she's just insane to deal with. Usually in all of my matches, she's a force ban almost every game, like post ban. Unless I'm first picking her. Like, it's gone to the point where I can't cleave against Savior Auden, so I'm picking Savior Auden as my anchor. And then I'm cleaving in a way that I don't have to deal with Auden, right? So, super obnoxious unit. She can heal on her S1. She gives everyone invincibility if she pushes up all the way. She can just delete one of her units on the S3 or S1. If you keep missing her, you're just never going to be able to deal with her. Oh, I forgot to mention a counter to her as well, Summertime. But like I said, if you pick Summertime, then what if she pairs with Ed or paired with Designer? Just so many things that you have to keep in mind when Saber Auden is being drafted against you, which is why she's such a safe first pick or second pick versus Cleave. Just super obnoxious to deal with. Now, I'm going to talk about Zeo next. Zeo, yes, Zeo is... If you're not Zeo cleaving, he's probably the most obnoxious anti-cleave unit for you. But if you are Zeo cleaving, then obviously you don't have to really worry about Zeo because you're the one picking Zeo. So I guess, yeah, Zeo can be tied for number 1 or number 2, depending on your style of cleave. I only Zeo cleave, so I don't have to worry about that. But yes, giving away turn 1 as a cleaver is asking to lose. There's a reason why the Flitty, C. Pavel, Sid cleavers, the one that don't rely on Zeo, they pre-ban Zeo because they do not want to give up the initiative, and it completely throws off your tempo on what you want to do as a cleaver. Like if they push back one of your key units and disable them, then silence them, then it's like, well, you just lost. Because if that, like let's say you're running the Sid C. Pavel cleave, right? If they push back your Sid, well now how are you supposed to get kills, right? Because Sid is the main DPS along with C. Pavel. Or if they push back like your C. Pavel, right? Then how is your C. Pavel supposed to S3 if he's pushed back all the way back? So just it throws off your game plan, which is, yeah, I get it. It's super obnoxious as well. And just these 5 units. No, I guess we'll talk about Karina too. Karina, I feel like she's the worst out of these 5, but she still deserves to be in this tier just because she's still broken, right? Like she's still better than everyone in the second tier by a long shot. She has the most broken part of Karina is her pushing up 50% CR when an ally gets under 50% health. That's the main reason why people draft Karina. Because if you pair her with stuff like Savior Auden, and if they get below half, then like Karina just wins, right? So they can't pick Zahak versus Auden and Karina. They can't pick Bryceria versus Auden and Karina unless they have Soulburn or something. But yeah, she can run counterattack too, and if she counterattacks one of your units, then she just blows them up in one hit with Rocket Punch. She's pretty much unkillable for like 3 million turns if she has defense buff and a barrier. She can give barrier to her whole team. Super obnoxious, and she doesn't care about evasion as well. So like if you're running Auden as an anchor, she just ignores it, just hits someone else and still does like 5 to 6k on the Auden. But yeah, super strong. What counters Karina? You have to pick debuff heavy cleaves. But again, you'll see a natural theme here. Since cleave is so linear, if you pick those debuff units, then they all just lose to Ed and Designer. Like if they pick Karina, Ed, Designer, then you're forced to ban one of Ed or Designer. But then that last unit, whoever doesn't get banned, is just gonna clean house. Which kind of forces you at that point to switch to a anchor style draft, right? Where you have like Arias and Line. You see me pick those all the time on my videos, where if they pick stuff that I can't beat in a regular cleave setting, then I have to pivot, right? I have no choice. Now, we're gonna go into the second row now. I'll talk about these briefly just because this video's already 15 minutes long. Edward. So why is Edward an issue? Well, I just mentioned the debuff heavy style of cleave. So if you have like Ran, Summertime, Astromancer, you have to post ban Ed pretty much. Otherwise you just lose, right? Moon Bunny, she pretty much shits on every single opener except for Ran and Zeo. But if you're running any other sort of cleave, whether it's like a Para style of cleave, a Sid style of cleave, and Flitica, my bad. She doesn't fuck over Flitica. But any openers that rely on an extra turn first, and then has an like, how much I explain this? For openers that have the bulk of their kit on the first turn, right? So stuff like Conqueror Lilius, stuff like Para, they have most of their effects on the first turn, and then they get the extra turn, Moon Bunny just shits on them. So that's the reason why. Sage Ball, now, Sage Ball, if this was before Yuffie, he'd be at like the Has counterplay tier, but he's all the way up here now because of Abyssal Yuffie. That's the only reason. So back then, you could pick Requiem, Rowana, and Politis versus Sage Ball, and he can't do anything, right? But now, if you pair Sage Ball with Abyssal Yuffie, you can't pick Rowana into that. She's never going to take a turn. You can pick Politis into that, but what if Abyssal Yuffie starts counterattacking you on Politis and Ran? Then it's like, oh shit. Well, I just lost, even though I technically counterpicked. And it's another layer of RNG you have to go through. His CR push is so annoying. If he sleeps your team, you're fucked. So yeah. That's why I have Efrez on my Rowana. Just because even if she doesn't get the turn, I just want her to not get slept. And then she can take the turn and then S3. Politis is usually a post-force ban as well, just because anything that has CR cut is just so broken against cleavers. Since cleavers, they all rely on CR manipulation. That's the core game plan, is CR manipulation. Take notes if you're a standard or aggro player. How to beat cleave, control their CR. Designer a little bit. Oh, and Politis can hold Abyssal Crowns, and that could be really annoying if she counterattacks or S2s and stuns your whole team. Designer is pretty much the same reason as Ed, but she's just a little bit worse because she loses to Rowana, unlike Ed. Elena, so this one is pretty high up here because her passive, her S2 passive, is just perfectly suited for cleave. She can cleanse off any like annoying debuffs. She gives everyone invincibility. She pushes up, even like she can push up, I think like 40% CR or something if she's on Max Tome or something like that. She reduces damage on AoE attacks, and Cleave is so reliant on AoE nowadays. Just super obnoxious to deal with. And she's on Stella Harpa, that's even worse. AOL is up here because she only has one counter, and that's Politis. Infinite Horizon Acades is the same thing as, same reasoning as Sage Ball, pretty much. Now we're gonna go into the annoying to deal with tier. I'll just briefly mention these. For Destina, the problem with her is that a lot of openers are water, right? So you need to actually hit Destina, which is another layer of RNG. And you need to bring Souls versus Destina too, because otherwise she's gonna live if you don't have a dedicated way to deal with her. And she can revive, right? Ocean Breeze is up here because she's a more aggressive version of Destina, where she can push up on your openers and essentially give everyone defense buff and Ice Cream and put silence, which can fuck you over. Charon is up here because for the cleavers that rely on non-debuff cleaves and imprint cleaving, so like the Sid, Felici, Pavel stuff, Charon can just completely dismantle those. assuming he's an FRES Flidia or FRES Kayron, and if he counters attacks too much, he can just blow up your team. Senya's on here just because fuck this unit, man. I hate Senya. She's extremely annoying to deal with. Anti-crit, right? The counterattack buff. She can counterattack one-tap your units. I swear Blunius can never hit her. If she's on the lifesteal E, that's even more annoying. Like, if she gets her S3 off, you just pretty much lose. Rem, so kind of similar on a similar boat to Senya, where if she just counterattacks too much and high rolls, then you also just lose. And she can be immune to debuffs. How to deal with... Oh, I forgot, I didn't talk about what can deal with these units, huh? So Destina, Briar Witch, obviously. Summertime is another one. Ocean Breeze, Politis, Summertime as well. Kayron, Veronica, Bryceria, Senya. You have Briar as well. You have Summertime. I guess you're seeing a trend here. Rem, you have Alaika that can deal with Rem. Straze can chip her down without proccing a crit or a counterattack, which is nice. Green Armin is in the... So what I just said about Rem is literally the exact same for Green Armin. You can pick stuff like Astromancer, these counterattackers. Now, Green Celine, usually she's not a problem, but if you're Ran cleaving with Summertime or Astromancer, she's pretty much a force ban or post ban. Unless your Summertime is tanky, then you don't have to worry about her. But if your Summertime isn't tanky like mine, then she needs to go. Holiday Eufiend, this is for the Zeo cleavers and some Ran cleavers that have immunity on their Eufiend that you can't hit, right? So they just push up and then you just get cleansed. She's also really annoying. It's another, like, all these units, they're all RNG in this tier, which is, it's just annoying, right? Like, if these units high roll, they can out potential the units in the top tier. So it's just obnoxious. Ascat, the exact same thing. It's just RNG, 20% evasion on all allies. You need to pick stuff like Zahak and Viseria, but as I mentioned, those things lose to stuff like Sage Ball and Infinite Horizon with Katie's. And then T Crozet, if he's on like Hilog, then he can just push up on your Zeo and then cleanse off debuffs. He can counterattack and stun. It's just another annoying unit, and he's a mitigator as well on top. Now, on the next row, these are units that they have counterplay. They're not really that good in anti-cleave, but you shouldn't really lose to these units unless your draft just gets completely shat on by this unit by themselves. So like if you're running a full water draft, and then of course you're gonna lose to Violet, right? But A Tywin, the problem with A Tywin is that he's not good into Zeo, and he's also not good into units that debuff multiple times, because they can just activate his passive and then there is no tempo after that. The only one he's good into is Knockle, but that's pretty much it. Ran, he can just apply the defense break after, because the stigma gets cleansed off, right? But not the defense break. As for Zeo, you can just activate his passive right away, and then you can just debuff all you want right after. RB, the problem with RB is a lot of units have extra turns. So you have stuff like Jacko, you have stuff like Sid, you have stuff like Bryceria that stop his revive, you have stuff like Summertime. A lot of units that can just kill him and then just extra turn and then just kill him again. But in some scenarios, he could be really, really strong, depending on their cleave draft, if they don't have any of those. Rimuru, the problem with Rimuru is he's good into Ran, but the Ran can just not S2. He can just Soulburn Ran, Soulburn S2 right away, and then he just doesn't care. Rimuru is good into the Guiding Light cleavers. So if you have like Guiding Light on your Flitty or something, or Guiding Light on your Lua or something, or like, but even with Lua you can just Soulburn S2, right? So it's fine. But I guess Flitty, or Knockle, if you're running Guiding Light on Knockle, then Rimuru can be an issue because he can just push up, steal buffs, and then just do his thing, right? ML Ken, ML Ken has some counterplay as well. He loses to non-crit cleave, so the Requiem Rona Summertime Zeo stuff. And he also loses to Astromancer. He doesn't do well. He doesn't do that good into Rand because Rand gives himself skill null before or after Estering, so he'll still be alive. While ML Ken's gonna have the defense break, and he's not really good into Aiden as well. So he has some counterplay. Violet, that should be obvious, right? It's the same counters as Savior Audit, except with Violet, it's not as bad because he doesn't push up as much as Aiden. Because, you know, Violet's like base speed pretty much. Mercedes, it's pretty similar to RB. They kind of have the same counters, except it's worse because Mercedes doesn't get the 100% CR push like RB does, so you can just kill her again right after. It's fine. It's only bad if she packs magic with friends and then like one taps her team or something. Inferno Kawazu, this is not really an issue as well, but if you do not have a reliable bridge and you use an AoE like a Ran, you can just get fucked over for it. But Inferno Kawazu is usually not that bad. Bryceria, same thing. Now, the thing with Bryceria is that she's gonna be stealth, right? So it's gonna be kind of hard if you have Zeo and Auden on your team, because if you're Auden anchoring, well, Bryceria is good into that. Now, if you're also Zeo cleaving with Zeo Jacko, there's no reach into Bryceria, so you need to pick 2 AoE units right after that, so like a Rand Ada or something. But if they ban Rand in that scenario, then your Ada has no bridge, and Rand Ada also loses to Violet and Savior Auden as well, so it's risky to pick those. But usually she's not too bad. There's usually, if you can't deal with Bryceria in your cleave draft, then you drafted kind of incorrectly, in my opinion. Because she's really squishy, right? So she shouldn't ever be able to, and she doesn't have any innate CR push as well, so you shouldn't ever be able to let her be able to S3 for free. T-Cernan also has counterplay, specifically Ada, specifically Requiem Rana, Zeo, stuff like that, where you could just reset her or push her back, and then even if she CR pushes up, like Poultice as well, she can't do anything. But she's good into stuff like C-Pavel and Sid and stuff. Now the next tier is the MLM anti-cleave, or pretty much the shitty anti-cleave. Like, this is like cope stuff. Don't pick these stuff if you're anti-cleaving. So you have A Robbie first. Why A Robbie? Because she just dies. She just gets controlled and debuffed to death, and she never is actually able to get her S3 off. Zeo can push her back. Rand can defense break her. Summertime can just stun her. She has no debuff control and no CR, not enough CR push to actually help her take a turn. The only way she's got an anti-cleave if she's counterattack, but that's pretty uncommon. Shu's the exact same reason. She doesn't provide enough, in my opinion. Yes, she can counterattack and pop off, but she can also get controlled really easily as well. Champsy, now Champsy, he's just so shit. He's like a wannabe Eden designer, but is dysfunctional. Because when he counterattacks, he doesn't do any damage. He doesn't apply any significant debuffs, like unlike Ed that can like provoke or like silence you. I think his counterattacks do like what, like decreased attack or something like that. But if you have Summertime, right? You don't care about decreased attack. The main objective is just to stun people. So you just stun the entire team around him. Champsies are literally base speed, so he's never gonna be able to S3 like ever anyways as well. And then you just kill him right after stunning everybody, so he's pretty cope. Abigail, her only use in anti-cleave is her having the immortality buff to someone else, but you can just like A-like her or something, or like Rand strip her, or like Summertime strip her. She has pretty decent counters as well. Now Spirit Eye, The problem with Spirit Eyeing as an anti-cleave unit is just there's just so much damage coming out if you're cleaving that she's not reliably going to be able to take turns even with Secret Art Storm Sword. Like with units that have so many extra turns that she's just going to keep taking more and more damage from, even if not from the extra attack units. Like if you have something like Summer Rake Charlotte, right? You just splash damage onto her. You can ran S3, that's more AoE to bring her down below her passive. Requiem Rowana, right? Just a lot of answers to Summertime. Benny Maru is another MLM anti-cleave just because you know what he's going, like, you know what's the reason why they pick him, so you just don't extra turn. And he's also extremely squishy, so unlike Moon Bunny, like, yeah, you can say the same thing about Moon Bunny, but with Benny Maru, he's just really squishy, so you can just kill him first. Like, Ran, if you're confident in your Ran's damage, you can S2, S3 and just one-tap Benny Maru if they have no mitigations. And BBK, here's the last MLM anti-cleave. Now BBK is terrible because Veronica exists now. Soulburn exists. Zio exists. She can't hide under stealth like Viseria. It's just hard for her to survive. But yeah. Now I'm going to talk about mitigation. Now I'll just briefly go over. They all do the same thing. The reason why Cleave is also struggling is because the meta is just so tanky that it's hard to break through a lot of the bulk that these tanks offer. Like if you pair one mitigator, like one of these tanks, with 4 anti-cleave units, those anti-cleave units become extremely hard to kill. So like, if you pair Scarewell with a designer, right? That designer is going to live for a very long time, so it allows her to cut more and more and more. If you AoE and they have an LRK, then you just gave everyone a fat barrier, right? If you're running single target cleave like Imprint or something, like C-Pavel Sid, then how are you ever going to kill a Yulha as well? Just a lot of issues with Cleave right now. I wish Cleave would be a little bit stronger, just to help it, you know. Actually, that's a lie. Cleave needs like a pretty big change to help, because Cleave is just so far gone right now. It's hard. Like I don't think you'll see probably 1 or 2 Cleavers in Legend. At least in my experience, I've only fought like 1 or 2 Cleavers. And the rest are all just standard players. But yeah, I hope this list gets you a sort of an idea on what to watch out for. It's just more of like if you see these units, just be careful, right? Definitely, if you're cleaving, you definitely need to know what every single one of these units do, to a degree. You don't have to know everything about them, but it's important to realize why they picked them. What is their purpose against your draft by picking these units? That is what you have to know, so you can accurately counterplay. Otherwise, if you just keep picking cleave units like a monkey, you're never gonna win, ever. Because that's just how the nature of cleave is right now. So you have to think very, very long and thought out when you're drafting against these units, right? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was sort of a longer one. My voice was dying. I saw you guys' comments about streaming. I will definitely send a notice over the weekend, and if I'm able to stream this weekend, I'll let you know. If not, then we'll stream next weekend. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, again, and I'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.